Westbooks.ca, The Rules of People. The moment you start trying to fix someone's problem for them, you stop listening to it. They have come to you to get things off their chest, perhaps to validate their feelings, maybe to help them find clarity by talking things over. Unless they actually asked you to help, they probably don't want you to. They just want you to listen. So sit on your hands, bite your tongue, repress your urge to do something. You're already doing something. You're listening. That's the thing, and you're doing it. Page 77. Know your limitations, and don't offer more than you're confident you can deliver. Otherwise, either one or both of you will be sorry. Page 78. The fact is, the telling someone their situation is as bad as they think it is never going to go down well. They know how bad it is, and you don't. If someone has recently been bereaved, divorced, made redundant, become seriously ill, the likelihood of them suddenly feeling better about it because you've pointed out how much worse off you are is zilch. Page 86. By the way, this approach looks whether the other person asks you for advice directly or whether they just come to talk over their problems. It's nice to know that I have one size fits all response you can use, and it's just so simple. All you have to do is ask questions. Yep, that's it. Easy, huh? Of course, there mustn't be leading questions which suggest their own answers. You want open questions, ones that which require a full and proper answer, not just yes or no response. You can start by asking the other person to tell you about their problem. Even if you already know a lot of it, you're just doing this for them, not you. The process of describing it will help them see clearly, which in turn will help them find their way through. Page 93. Once you realize someone is playing yes but, your best bet is to stop making suggestions. Turn around and ask them what they think they should do. Unless it's you, of course, in which case you need to ask yourself why you're doing it. Look, as with all things, you need balance and moderation. The logical opposite of not being able to discuss your feelings isn't having to discuss your feelings. It's being able to discuss them. That's a very different thing. It's certainly important that we feel we can talk through problems, sadness, fears, unhappiness, anger, grief, depression, if we want to. But we don't have to want to. And one of the most frustrating things if you're in an emotional swamp is other people putting pressure on you to talk. So please don't do this to people. Not everyone feels better for talking about everything to everyone all the time. They might feel better for talking to someone at some point, but it might not be you, and it might not be now. The unconscious mind usually goes into denial for a very good reason, because facing up to the reality is too hard to bear. Their denial is a safety net, and if you take it away, or try to force them to remove it, you leave them more vulnerable than before. Usually denial is a valuable and important emotional barrier, and one it's very unwise to try to dismantle in someone else. The thing that can be most helpful of all, in fact, is to let someone who doesn't want to talk know that you won't encourage them to. Sometimes if someone is going through a crisis, the most helpful thing you can say is, I'm happy to talk if you want to, but I won't mention the subject unless you bring it up first. That way they can relax around you, knowing they won't be under pressure. Page 100. Every single interaction you have with someone leaves them feeling at least a little bit better or a little bit worse. It's never neutral. When you start monitoring how you feel when you meet other people, you find that it's absolutely right. It's almost impossible to come away from even the smallest encounter without feeling invigorated or frustrated or embarrassed or cheered or worried or guilty or positive or inadequate or reassured or ignored or amused. Page 102. Look, it's not just about the difference your actions make. It's also about the way it makes the other person feel. Very often your help can be the thing that makes someone feel cared about, loved, worthwhile, grateful, wanted, and that they can cope. And sometimes not. There are other things that people might feel instead of, or as well as, those things. They might feel patronized, belittled, helpless, childlike, beholden. They don't want those feelings. Then again, neither do they feel comfortable rejecting you when you're trying to be kind. Unless they're a teenage child, in which case they'll be quite at ease with it. Whenever you offer help, you effectively invite the other person to take out a karmic loan. You're offering to become their karmic creditor, which means you're in a position of power over them. Yes, I know that wasn't your intention. You just wanted to be helpful. I get that, but it makes no difference. That is the simple nature of the transaction. Page 108. Never underestimate the value of remembering people and the details of what they're up to, especially if they might perceive you as being senior to them in some way, or above them, as I view my actor friend. Remember the names of the receptionist kids, or the fact that the colleague has a big family celebration coming up. Are you thinking, how am I supposed to remember all that? I suspect you may be, and I'll give you two answers. Firstly, the more you're genuinely interested and engaged in the conversation, the more likely you are to remember it. That's how the actor did it. He listened to people properly. Secondly, you can write it down, because obviously you can't be expected to remember it all in your head. I've kept countless notes on customers' files to remind me of when the daughter's driving test is, or what kind of wine they like. If you know your cousin and his wife will be over and again in November, send an electric reminder or of some kind for yourself. My dentist always knows what I've been up to. I'm pretty sure he's keeping notes as well. Page 115. If in doubt, or even if not in doubt. The trick is to spend less time making general statements such as well done, and more time picking out specific details and discussing them. That will be really rewarding for them without you having to make a decision about how high to set the appraisal-meter. Page 131. There are two parts to every project: the destination and the route that you're going to take to get there. If you're adamant that your idea is the only way that will work, and you have the authority to impose it on your team, your family, or your fellow club members, your kids, your friends, at least give them a chance to determine how you collectively achieved it. Page 135. Once you give someone credit for an idea, it's very hard for them to say that wasn't my idea. There's a lot of rules about how to be persuasive, but your immediate problem is how you point out the wrong without telling them you're wrong. You have to find a way of making it clear you're on the other side of the fence without putting their back up against it. Give them a way to concede the point without losing face. It starts with simple words, phrasing your opposition in a way that feels cooperative and non-combative. A lot of people prefer to soften it a bit, and here's a few examples. That can't be right, can it? I don't think that's right. I'm not sure that's right. I don't agree with you. I look at it differently, or I don't see it like that. The facts suggest a different story to me. You're right about one thing. Page 136. Once everyone has grasped the central idea, it's much easier to get them working together on a daily basis. It's a logical progression, so all you have to do is encourage it. Here are a few ways you can do that. Include everyone in the making important decisions. Be flexible about roles. The important thing is to exploit everyone's strengths. Practice what you preach. Share credit, rewards, fun tasks with the rest of the group. Don't hog the best bits. Encourage people to share knowledge so they understand where each other fit into the group. Don't judge people for bad ideas and suggestions. Demonstrate that all ideas are welcome. There's really no limit to what you can bring into a negotiation. Page 153. When you try to fill all these variables factors and give yourself plenty to negotiate with, you can be as creative as you like about what you suggest. The other person can always just say no. Page 154, remember. The other person has to have the feeling that they're winning before they'll say yes, so you shouldn't expect to take without also giving. Indeed, you shouldn't want to. You want the other person to feel as good as possible about the whole deal so they won't just walk away from it. Make sure they're happy so they'll be happy to deal with you in the future. So offer fast delivery if they will pay up front, or suggest they could lower their price if they lower the spec. Page 157. You can't be confident you'll come out of the discussion successful unless you know what constitutes a success. Page 157. Before you fix the deal in stone. Ask whether there's anything else they want to discuss, include, alter, agree, and or rearrange. If they say no, they'll be on the back foot if they try to introduce it later. This is because you can say, no, we agreed that there wasn't any other points. That's the deal as it stands. They really can't argue with that so long as you've made it quite clear, and if they ever negotiate with you again, they'll know not to try it with you. Page 163. The one thing you must never ever do is let them see that you're scared, worried, anxious, or nervous about not finding any center ground. If they can see that they got you on the run, that no deal would be worse for you than any deal, they've got you over a barrel, and I can't help you, no one can. They can demand anything they like and threaten to walk away if you don't agree. And you'll have to say yes or give in to the deal that really doesn't work. There are always going to be times when you need agreement badly and are worried about what will happen if you don't reach it. You can't always avoid the situation. What you can do is maintain a calm and understated front, and appear keen to strike a deal, but be prepared to walk away if you have to. You know it's not true. I know it's not true. But for goodness sake, don't let them know it's true. Page 165. You don't have to tell the other person you're onto them. Mind you, they won't like being caught out, and you don't want to get on the wrong side of them. You can just let them know now isn't a good time, or suggest that this item warrants a full discussion and should go on the agenda for next meeting so everyone has time to prepare for it. In fact, if anyone tries to put you on the spot with a request and claims it's urgent, especially when it's more urgent to them than you, I'd recommend the response a good friend of mine also used to use. It works on colleagues, friends, family, and even your kids. If anyone is pressed for a decision when there isn't time, here's something you can say. If you need an answer now, it's no. Page 172. This is how almost all bullies work. They belittle other people and do their best to turn them into victims. Why? Because the victim is submissive to their aggressor. Or to put it another way, the aggressor is dominant, bigger, more powerful, more in control. This is the feeling that bully wants. Why do they want it? Because deep down inside, they feel powerless. Maybe someone else is dominating them. Maybe their life feels out of their control. Maybe they're secretly scared. Not only can they feel bigger by making someone else feel smaller, often they also gain, or feel they gain, the respect and admiration of their acolytes, who in fact often surround them in an attempt to avoid being bullied themselves. Page 173. No one thinks to themselves, I'm going to try bullying people, that might make me feel better. It's an instinctive thing that they haven't thought through, and most bullies don't recognize that description of themselves. Obviously, because they see themselves as powerless and victimized, and that's not their idea of a bully. Page 175. Shouted people are frustrated people who feel they are not being heard. It's a good rule of thumb that anytime someone raises their voice to you, they think you're not listening. If they're right, it's a clue that you need to hear them out fully. If they're wrong, and you really are listening, it's still a reliable gauge that you need to show you are. Don't interrupt them, repeat back the main points they're making, nod, show you've grasped the emotions as well as their words. It follows from this, incidentally, that some people get shouted out more than others. Good listeners who show they're listening don't get shouted out nearly as often as those people who interrupt, jump to conclusions, plow their own path regardless of what other people say, and are closed to other people.